You know they hurt you. You know the relationship was toxic. You may have even ended it completely, but no matter what you do, you cannot stop thinking about them. They show up in your dreams, you check their social media, even when you promised yourself that you wouldn't. A song comes on and suddenly you are right back there. You find yourself replaying conversations, imagining scenarios, wondering what they're doing right now. And the part that makes it even more confusing, you don't even want to be thinking about them, but you can't seem to stop. Not yet. But that is exactly what we're going to change today. There is a clinical reason for this, and it has nothing to do with weakness. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist based in California, and today I'm going to explain exactly what is happening in your brain when you cannot stop thinking about someone who hurt you, and what you can actually do about it. A quick note before we begin. Everything I share here is for educational purposes only. I'm a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist, and this is not therapy. If you're struggling, please reach out to a licensed professional who can support you directly. There's a number in the description below. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about what is actually happening neurologically when someone takes up this kind of real estate in your mind. Your brain has a system called the default mode network. This is the neural network that activates when you're not focused on a specific task. When you're daydreaming, lying in bed before sleep, driving that familiar route home, or doing anything that does not require your full conscious attention. It's essentially your brain's idle mode. In a healthy situation, your default mode network wanders freely, thinking about your plans, your dreams, what you might cook for dinner, random memories. But when you have experienced a significant emotional attachment, especially one that involved pain, confusion, or unresolved conflict, your brain essentially bookmarks that person as unfinished business. Now, research has shown us that our brains have a very strong drive to complete unfinished tasks and unresolved situations. When something remains unresolved, our brain keeps returning to it compulsively, trying to find resolution, trying to find closure, or just to understand what actually happened. A painful relationship that ended without resolution, without explanation, without closure, without the apology you deserved, is the perfect storm for that to take place. Your brain is not being irrational, it's just doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's trying to find something that will complete the loop, make it feel finished. And here's the painful irony. The more you try to suppress thoughts about this person, the more your brain will produce them. This is called the rebound effect, and it's been demonstrated consistently in psychological research. Telling yourself to not think about them is neurologically similar to telling yourself not to think about a pink elephant. The instruction itself just activates the very thought that you're trying to avoid. But here is what this also means. Once you understand how your brain works, you can work with it instead of against it. And quite frankly, that changes everything. So why is it this particular person is someone your brain can't release? Why not somebody else from your past? There are 4 specific factors that can make certain people particularly difficult, though not impossible, to stop thinking about. And understanding them is the first step toward reclaiming your mental and emotional freedom. The first factor, factor 1, the relationship was emotionally intense. Emotional intensity, whether positive or negative, strengthens neural pathways. The more emotionally charged your experiences with someone were, the deeper the neural grooves associated with them become. This is why we remember most of our intense experiences very vividly. The relationship that hurt you most was probably also one of the most emotionally intense experiences of your life. That intensity literally carved deeper pathways in your brain than calmer, more stable relationships did. The depth of your pain is also evidence of the depth of your capacity to feel, to connect, and to love. That capacity is not your weakness, it's one of your greatest strengths, and it will serve you more powerfully in healthier relationships. Factor 2, The relationship was unpredictable. If you watched my last video on trauma bonding, you'll recognize this pattern. Unpredictable relationships, ones that alternate between warmth and cruelty, closeness and rejection, create a state of chronic hypervigilance in your nervous system. Even after the relationship ends, your brain continues scanning for signals from this person out of habit. The vigilance does not automatically switch off just because the relationship is over. But your nervous system learned that pattern and it can unlearn it. Hypervigilance that was once a survival response can be gradually recalibrated into the safety and steadiness you deserve to feel. Factor 3. You're waiting for closure that may never come. Closure is not just an emotional concept. It is a neurological one. And when a significant relationship ends abruptly, with unanswered questions, with things left unsaid, or with an explanation that was never making sense, your brain files it under unresolved and keeps returning to it. But here's something I want you to really hear. Closure is not something another person gives you. Waiting for someone who hurt you to provide the explanation, the apology, or the acknowledgement you deserve means handing your healing over to the very person who caused your pain. That is giving away your power to someone who has already demonstrated that they do not deserve it. Closure is something you create for yourself. And that is actually the good news, because it means your healing is not dependent on anyone else's choices. Factor 4. Your identity became intertwined with theirs. In relationships where trauma bonding occurred, your sense of self often quietly eroded over time. When the relationship ends, your brain is not just grieving the person, it is grieving a version of yourself that existed within that relationship. The thoughts are not only about them anymore. They're about who you were, who you thought you were becoming, and who you are now without them. But here's the truth that I want you to hold on to. The self that eroded in that relationship is not gone. It went quiet, but it didn't disappear. And the work of reclaiming it piece by piece on your own terms is some of the most profound and rewarding work a human being can do. You're not starting over. You're starting from a place of hard-won self-knowledge that most people never develop. That is not nothing. That is actually everything. So what do you actually do with all of this information? Here are 4 clinically grounded strategies that actually work. Not overnight, but with consistent practice. Strategy 1. Stop trying to stop. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but fighting your thoughts is making them stronger. Choosing to observe your thoughts rather than fight them is one of the most sophisticated and powerful things your mind can do. It is you taking the driver's seat. Instead of telling yourself, do not think about them, try this. When the thought arises, acknowledge it without judgment. Simply notice, there's that thought again. Then gently redirect your attention to something in your immediate physical environment. What do you see right now? What do you hear? What do you feel physically? This technique comes from the acceptance and commitment therapy, and it is significantly more effective than thought suppression for intrusive thoughts. Strategy 2. Take your power back by creating closure for yourself. You don't need them to apologize. You don't need them to finally understand. You don't need an explanation that makes sense. You do not need anything from somebody who has already shown you exactly who they are. Your closure is yours to create, and creating it yourself is one of the most empowering things you can do in your healing process. Here's how. Write a letter that you will never send. Say everything you never got to say. Ask every question that went unanswered. And then write the responses that you deserve to receive. Speak the truth of your experiences out loud to yourself. Acknowledge what happened, what the cost was, and what you're choosing to do with it now. This is not pretending things happen differently. It's about giving your brain the resolution it's seeking, on your terms, in your time, without waiting for permission from someone else. This is not settling, this is freedom. Strategy 3. Interrupt the neural pathways deliberately. Every time your brain returns to this person, it strengthens the neural pathway associated with them. You interrupt that cycle by consistently redirecting to a replacement thought or activity the moment that you notice the thought arising. Over time, this takes weeks and not just days, but over time, the old pathway weakens and the new one strengthens. And this is the neurological process that therapists call pattern interruption. Think about what that actually means. Every single time you choose to redirect your thoughts, you are literally changing the physical structure of your brain. You're not just managing symptoms, you're doing neuroscience. You are rewriting yourself from the inside out, and that's extraordinary. Strategy 4. Address the underlying unmet need. Here's something most people miss entirely. Persistent thoughts about someone who hurt you are rarely just about that person. They're usually about something deeper, a need for validation that was never met, a longing for safety that the relationship promised but never delivered, a grief over who you thought this person was going to be in your life. Identifying and addressing that underlying unmet need is often the key to finally loosening the grip that these thoughts have on you. Now, this work is best done with a therapist, and if you are ready for that support, I've left resources in the description below. And I want to say this clearly. Choosing to seek support is not a sign that you can't handle this. It's a sign that you respect yourself enough to get the most effective help available. The strongest thing you can do for yourself right now is to refuse to white-knuckle your healing alone when real support exists. Asking for help is an act of power, not of weakness. If this video helped you understand something about your own experience, please subscribe, because every Monday and Thursday I bring this same clinical perspective to the topics that affect you in real life. And if you have not watched my last video on trauma bonding, I've linked it below, because the two topics are deeply connected, and watching both will give you a much fuller picture of what you may be experiencing. You're not crazy. You're not weak. Your healing does not require anyone's participation but your own. You have everything you need to begin. I'll see you in the next one.